A dinner with Jason event appeared in her Google Calendar. She promised she'd be home. I sat on the edge of our bed, phone in hand, staring at Emma's calendar entry with cold disbelief. Dinner with Jason? Who the hell was Jason? My heart pounded as I scrolled through the week, surprised by how many client lunches, networking calls, and coffee meetings appeared under her name. Each entry was meticulously labeled as professional engagements, but something about their frequency and timing felt off. She had always been ambitious. Working at a boutique marketing firm meant long days, late nights, and occasional weekend commitments, but never like this. This wasn't the Emma I knew. I leaned back against the headboard and remembered the last few weeks. She'd been distant, itchy to leave the apartment the moment I walked through the door. She claimed the board at work was swamped, that the vice president wanted extra updates, that her mentor was pushing her to network more, and I had believed her. I'd bought into the story, proud of her hustle, proud of us. But tonight, as I stared at Dinner with Jason on Friday at 7 p.m., I realized I'd been played. My thumb hovered over the details of that calendar entry. I tapped it open, heart in my throat, a high-end Italian restaurant. No notes about a project deliverable or a client name, just Jason, a name that could easily belong to a coworker, a mentor, even a friend. But the timing? A Friday night. No business would schedule an off-the-clock dinner unless it was parasitic blackmail or something scandalous. I didn't want to believe the worst, yet every instinct screamed that I was being duped. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she'd told me about a new guy at work named Jason who was mentoring her pro bono. Except why hadn't she mentioned any of this? I replayed our conversation from last night. She'd said she'd be home by 8, needed to clear her head after a big pitch. I'd fallen for her excuse, kissing her cheek and climbing into bed alone, expecting her to walk through the door with coffee and a smile. Instead, she never came home. The apartment felt emptier than usual. I flicked on the lamp and rummaged through her desk drawers, looking for anything, receipts, notes, evidence. I found a crumpled loyalty card from that Italian place, Mangia Mia, tucked beneath a pile of bills. Why would she carry that? Something in her purse, maybe? I slipped on my shoes, grabbed my keys. If Emma was out there laughing over pasta with Jason, I needed to know. And if it was a business dinner, I needed proof. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and determination. I was going to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I parked 2 blocks away, heart hammering so loud I felt it in my throat. Through the rain-splattered windshield, I watched Emma slip under the awning of Mangia Mia, elegantly dressed in that black wrap dress she wore on our anniversary last year. Jason, tall, broad-shouldered, hair neatly gelled, opened the door for her, too smoothly, too intimately. They exchanged warm hellos that felt like knives twisting in my gut. I sat there 5 minutes longer, convincing myself I was about to walk in, introduce myself, and discover there was some innocent explanation. But with each second that passed, I felt less sure. I fished my phone out of my pocket. No missed calls, no texts from Emma explaining anything. I sent her a quick, running late, won't be home until late, love you text from my own phone, lying to myself as much as to her. Finally, I climbed out, pushed open the door. The restaurant's warm glow hit me like a punch. There was Jason, one knee on a chair, sliding a wine glass across the table toward Emma. She caught it between us and raised her eyebrows in mock surprise. They laughed. By the time I made it halfway to their table, Emma had tossed her hair, leaned forward, and touched Jason's hand. The gesture wasn't consoling. It was intimate, possessive. My voice came out raw. "Emma?" They jumped apart like children caught with candy. Jason's face went pale, Emma's mouth fallen open. I saw her purse slumped on the seat beside her, the strap hanging loose. She'd abandoned it the moment she realized I was there. I realized then how complicit I'd been in my own heartbreak, scrolling through her calendar, searching for signs instead of listening to my gut. They both scrambled for words. I raised a hand. No explanations, no excuses. I turned and walked out, rain hitting me like betrayal. Standing on the sidewalk, soaked and numb, I pulled out my phone and dialed my brother. I needed someone who knew the real me, who could help me decide if I should confront her tonight, or if I'd already made my decision simply by showing up. I ended the call before my brother even picked up. Couldn't bear the sound of his calm voice telling me to breathe. I slid down the side of my car against the curb, chest tightening as if it were some vice. Rain trickled down my collar and pooled around my shoes. I hadn't just walked in on them. I'd intruded on a life I thought I shared. 15 minutes stretched into an eternity as I stared at the restaurant door, imagining them inside, laughing over entrees I paid for. Finally, I stood up and pulled my coat tighter. I owed Emma at least one conversation. My rational mind argued that we should talk face to face like adults. But every step I took felt weighted, like I was trudging through cement. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone had rung 10 times. No voicemail, no texts. That silence felt worse than any apology. Inside, I flicked on the light. The place looked the same. Our photos on the mantle, the succulents on the windowsill, the couch where we'd spent lazy Sunday afternoons. It was all familiar and felt foreign, like I'd stumbled into someone else's life. I sank onto the couch and texted her, "We need to talk, now." I heard the lock click and turned just as Emma slipped through the door. She was soaked, her hair plastered to her face, mascara smudged. She glanced at my outstretched hand holding my phone, eyes widening in panic. What are you?" she started, but I cut her off. "Don't lie," I said softly. My voice cracked and I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I saw you at Mangia Mia." Her face went pale, guilt and fear pooling in her eyes. She took a step forward but stopped at the threshold, water dripping onto my rug. "Jason," she whispered. It's not like that." I let out a bitter laugh. "You think that matters? The dinners labeled as networking calls, the client meetings at breweries, the coffee shop brainstorming sessions with someone who's not on your team." She closed her eyes, shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry," she choked out. Her words dissolved into tears. I stared at her, heart-wrenching. The woman I loved was standing there in tears, apologizing, but I didn't know if that apology could repair what I'd seen. Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating, as the rain drummed on the window pane. I didn't know what would happen next, if forgiveness was possible, or if this was the end. All I knew was that Emma's betrayal had caved my world in, and I had no idea how to put the pieces back together. Emma sank onto the edge of the couch, her shoulders trembling as tears slipped down her cheeks. I could feel the anger and hurt pooling in my chest, burning like acid. For a moment, I just stared at her, my mind racing through every memory we'd shared. Dancing in our living room to a scratched-up vinyl, lazy Sunday pancake mornings, whispered promises under starlit skies. Each warm recollection felt like shards of glass cutting through my heart. "I don't know what you want me to say," she whispered, voice cracking. "It started with coffee. He said he could help me land that promotion. I thought it was professional, until it wasn't." I stood, pacing the length of the apartment. The overhead light cast long shadows on the hardwood floor. "You thought it was professional," I repeated, voice low, almost a growl. "So you didn't think it was worth telling me?" She shook her head, shoulders shuddering. I was ashamed. I knew it was wrong. Shame. I thought of the calendar invites labeled Network with Jason, then follow-up call, Jason, then dinner with Jason. Each reminder a lie I'd swallowed whole. "You planned it," I said. "You hid it." She glanced at her hands, knuckles white. "I'm sorry." "Sorry," I scoffed, my throat tight. "You broke us." She reached out, fingertips hovering over my arm. I recoiled as if burned. My voice shook. "I need space," I said. "I don't know if I can forgive you." She nodded, tears glimmering. "I understand." I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door, feeling her eyes on me as I slipped it on. "I'm going out," I said, voice flat. "I'll be back later." I stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. Below, the city hummed with life. Cars splashed through puddles, distant laughter echoed off brick buildings. I pulled my collar up and walked without direction, boots slapping wet pavement. Rain blurred the neon signs of the corner deli. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Emma's name on the screen. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted my friend Mike. "Can you meet? I need to get out of here." Moments later, I slowed outside a 24-hour diner, neon sign buzzing. I pushed through the door, bell jingling. The waitress nodded, sliding a coffee across before I sat. I stirred the mug, watching spirals of cream dissolve. Everything had changed. I didn't know if I'd ever see Emma the same way. As the rain tapped the window, I wondered how long it would take for this ache to fade, or if I'd carry it with me forever. I sat at the diner counter, Mike sliding into the stool beside me with 2 steaming cups of black coffee. The fluorescent light hummed overhead, painting everything in pale yellow, and the late-night crowd was thin, just a couple of insomniac truckers and a teenager scrolling through her phone in the corner booth. I took a long sip, letting the bitterness claw at my nerves. "Damn, man," Mike said quietly after I told him the bare bones. Emma's secret dinners, the calendar invites, the betrayal right under my nose. "That's brutal." I shrugged, staring into my cup as Mike rapped his knuckles on the Formica counter. "I feel like an idiot. I was proud of her promotions, her drive. I thought I was supporting her dreams." He nodded. "You were, but she betrayed that trust. How long has it been going on?" I counted on my fingers, at least 2 months. Networking calls, client meetings, all of them with Jason. Mike exhaled. "It makes sense you're in shock. You're angry, hurt, confused. You want answers, closure, but you also need to process this." I rubbed my forehead. I keep replaying every conversation, every excuse. Was I too naive? Too trusting? "Trust is a gift, man," he said. "You gave it freely. She took it and broke it. That's on her, not you." I looked up, eyes stinging. "Do I even want her back?" Mike wrapped an arm around my shoulder. "Only you can decide. But don't rush. Sleep on it. Talk to her when you've calmed down. If she's truly remorseful, maybe there's a path forward. But if you sense she's still hiding something, you have to protect yourself." His words hit home. I drained my coffee and flagged down the waitress for the check. Outside, the rain had eased to a light drizzle. I walked home in silence, neon puddles reflecting broken streetlights and my own uncertain thoughts. Our apartment was dark when I let myself in. Emma's coat lay on the hook, her shoes by the door. I flicked on the lamp in the living room and stared at our photos, her laughing at my terrible jokes on our first road trip, us bundled in winter coats at a Christmas market. They felt like relics from another life. I curled up on the couch, waves of exhaustion washing over me. My phone buzzed with texts I didn't open. I knew she was waiting for me to decide her fate. But as sleep claimed me, I realized that tomorrow I'd have to face Emma again, with questions, with anger, maybe even with forgiveness, or perhaps with final goodbyes. I didn't know which it would be, but I knew that by morning, nothing would be the same. Morning light filtered through the curtains and found me curled on the couch, sweatshirt twisted around my shoulders like a security blanket. My head throbbed with the remnants of 2 strong diner coffee and 2 short sleep. Every muscle ached as if I'd been running from something. My own life, maybe. I blinked at my phone on the coffee table. 8 missed calls, a mix of texts from Emma and one from Mike checking in. I ignored them. I didn't want to start the day drowning in expectations. I stood and padded to the bedroom, opening the door on a scene I couldn't believe was mine. Emma's side of the bed pristine, pillows fluffed as if she'd never been there. My side sagged under my weight. The blanket twisted into a knot. I wondered how long she'd stayed away, where she'd spent the night. Jason's apartment? A hotel? The thought sent a cold spike through my chest. Downstairs, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, arms wrapped around a mug of coffee. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon, the latte she always made on weekends. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed, guilt etched in every line of her face. "Hey," I said, surprising myself with the gentleness of my voice. "Morning," she whispered. She folded her hands on the table and took a shuddering breath. "Can we talk?" I set my coffee on the counter and leaned against it, arms crossed. The weight of last night pressed on me, but I knew this conversation couldn't wait. "Yeah," I said. "Let's talk." She rubbed her palms together, like she was trying to ground herself. "I stayed at my friend Sarah's," she began. "I couldn't face you last night. I thought if I had time, I could figure out what to say." I nodded, listening. I wanted to scream that everything she said was too late, that she'd already decided our fate without me, but I breathed out and let her continue. "I'm so sorry for lying," she said, voice cracking. I felt stuck. I got carried away with this, with Jason. It started as professional guidance, but I let it become more. I never meant to hurt you. I love you, and I hate that I broke that trust. My chest tightened. Love. Trust. Words I had once believed were unbreakable. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked quietly. She closed her eyes. "Because I was ashamed, and I was scared you'd think I was weak, that you'd leave me. And then I couldn't stop lying because every excuse felt easier than the truth. I stared at her, trying to decide if her shame was genuine, if her fear of losing me was real. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, I spoke. "We built our life on promises," I said. "I backed your dreams without question. I offered you everything. My support, my trust, my love, and you traded it for secret dinners and hollow calendar invites." Her shoulders shook with fresh tears. "I know, and there's nothing I can say to take it back. But I want to make it right, if you'll let me." I thought of the mornings we made breakfast together, of the nights we stayed up planning trips, of the quiet moments when no words were needed. Could I risk that again? Or was I already too broken? "I need time," I said at last. "I need space to figure out if I can trust you again. Not forever, just some days where I'm not looking over my shoulder." She nodded, relief and sorrow mingling in her eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." I stood, placed a hand on her shoulder and squeezed gently. Then I walked to the window and stared out at the quiet street, rain-softened pavement gleaming in the dawn. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether we'd find our way back to each other, or if this was where our story ended. But in that moment, I realized that trust, once shattered, might never be whole again. And maybe that was the hardest truth of all.